in his first championship that he won with the Lakers, and when his rookie year, I believe, was 1980, and the beginning of the best era, the best decade of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
He said in an interview that he told everybody in the huddle, or I think either he said it or somebody said it about him. They said, "Never fear, number 32 is here." So that is a common concept that we've had through our entertainment, through our sports world, is the idea of, hey, don't fear. Why? Because there's somebody here.
Right. And in the case of the Lord, it doesn't matter the situation. Now, let's be honest, there are some situations that my children could face, your children could face, where it's not enough to say, Mommy is here, Daddy is here, right? There are going to be some situations they face, maybe when in the dark of the night when they're 3 years old and it's a scary dream, that may be enough. There will be some situations where it won't be enough just for us to say that we're here. But when God says, I am with you, behold, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age, right? That means something. That means when you get the diagnosis that you were dreading and hoped it wouldn't be, when you get that notice from work about the downsizing, when you get that communication from the loved one, I'm not in love with you anymore. When your whole world is falling apart, or even if it's just something small and it's just one of those daily frustration things, in any situation, God is with us. And that's why I like when she quotes from 2 Chronicles, you don't need to fight in this battle. You don't need to do the fighting. Stand firm. Hold your position. You think about the great passage with all the armor of God, right? The helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, all that.
Right.
When you go through all of that stuff, you're all armored up, right? Breastplate of righteousness, shield of faith. You've got all the armor. What's the command? And when you've got all this stuff on, what are you supposed to do? Stand. Stand. That's the command, right? It's not sally forth and take that hill, right? It's not go forth and conquer that castle. But when you've got all that on, now you know what? You stand. You stand firm because the Lord is the one who's going to fight your battle for you.
Yes, that is so true. And again, that's such a solid message for our day because Twitter, Steve, I gave you a nickname now, Twitter, we both are on Twitter. And when you look at Twitter, I don't know what you like to do. I like to scroll down through my feed of who I follow. And I also like to scroll down through what's trending. One of the things I like about Twitter is how amazing it is that I can get news faster than the news outlets get it when you go on what's trending on Twitter. But I notice several times I'm going down through and just looking through the feed and several times somebody will say, I need prayer right now, folks. Or others will say, hey, I don't think I'm going to make it to the next day. Or there's been several that I've seen from time to time that'll say, I'm thinking about ending my life.
Right.
And it just seems like that's growing. Do you think that's growing?
Oh, I think so. And the one thing I'll say, if there's anything positive to say about social media, it's that there have been situations where people have put that out there into the world, and people have come around them through prayer, through actually calling some other means of help to come in. But one thing I want to throw out there, when we have national tragedies, right, or worldwide tragedies, and then out come the comments, you're in my prayers, you're in my thoughts and prayers, I'll pray for you. And I will see pretty quickly now people who will tweet out or put out on other media, I don't want your prayers. I'm sick of your thoughts and prayers, right? Prayers don't do anything, right? We need other kind of action or government action or whatever other kind of action they think is appropriate. The only thing I would say to that is you don't understand what prayer is fundamentally, and you don't know the one to whom we are praying. If you did, then you would realize that prayer is more powerful than anything that we could come up with. Right.
Yes. Yeah, because calling upon the King of Kings and Lord of Lords and the Creator of the universe, there is nothing greater than that. So I think it's that's a message that all of us need to constantly be reminded of because it's so easy for us to forget. It's so easy for us to forget about that.
And I just thought this in there. A pastor of mine once said, one of the chief consequences of the fall of man, we're going back to Genesis now in the garden, one of the chief consequences of the fall of man was amnesia. Right? We all have that tendency to forget.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
In your case, that's just because you're old.
Yeah, well, every now and then. I mean, has that been happening to you, Steve? I mean, lately, I tell you what, I use the reminder app on my phone because I don't use paper at all anymore. But lately, I have been finding the need to constantly remind myself. I'm getting to that place because I used to hear people say this. I used to laugh. If I don't put it down, I won't remember it. And man, I am at that place. If I don't put it down, I will not remember it. And especially, I have to tell my phone to actually remind me, otherwise I will forget.
Brother, I've been that way for more than 30 years, truth to tell. First off, it was pocket calendars, then it went to the Franklin planner, and now it's the calendar on my phone. But if I don't have it written down, it doesn't happen.
Did you ever have a Palm Pilot?
Somewhere I skipped that stage. I was still with my Franklin planner. I never did the Palm Pilot, and then I ended up with the smartphone. So I missed that step in there.
Right, but something that's really good is that I would almost say, and this might come across somewhat sacrilegious, but I would almost say that Siri in my life could say, "Hey, never fear, Siri is here," because of the fact that I set a reminder one time on my phone. And I'm just driving home. The day's over, and I'm driving home. And all of a sudden, I get this buzz on my phone. Just this alert that comes up, and it says that pick this up, because I had to pick up something for my wife. And otherwise, what would have happened? I would have driven home. And I would have just simply walked in and not thought anything about it until she told me, "Did you pick up this?" And I have to go right back out. So I say sometimes never fear, because your smartphone is there.
Nice. And you know what? Sometimes I say never fade.
Yes.
Which is our next song on this episode by our friends over in the Netherlands, Angelic Forces.
When everything is gone,
right, Never Fade by Angelic Forces. Once again, tremendous, solid, classic metal with guitars and vocals.
Well, and if we can just give a little shout out there to our buddy Maurice Geishman. We interviewed him for an upcoming episode of Classic Christian Rock Podcast. It was a real treat to spend some time talking with him, and we're looking forward to, you guys will look forward to hearing that episode when it comes out. Right now, it's the wee hours of the morning. Where Maurice lives, so he certainly wouldn't be listening to us live, but hopefully he'll get a chance to listen to this on playback.
And Maurice, when you do listen, and I'm sure you're going to be listening now to the recording, I have a message for you. Never fear, Wildman and Steve are here.
Okay, you know what? You keep coming up with, listen, you've got to be able to identify this reference then for me. Never fear, Smith is here.
Okay.
What 1960s, 1970s live action sci-fi drama featured a character who regularly said, "Never fear, Smith is here."
You know, we might be getting into how much older you are than I.
Wow.
You didn't even laugh at that. You didn't even chuckle. You know.
Well, I would have laughed at us crying.
I mean, the first thing I thought of when you said that was the idea of whatever the Russian guy's name was that fought Rocky. That was the first thing. Before you gave the era, that's the first thing I thought of.
Okay, nice thought. A little bit prior to that, we're talking about Lost in Space.
Oh,
Lost
yes.
in Space.
You know, my only connection with Lost in Space, because I really didn't watch that that much. I did see a few reruns. Was Pigs in Space. That was my connection. Was the Muppets, Pigs in Space. Oh, yeah. I mean, don't you remember that? Pigs in Space.
I do. Wow, I had not thought of that for years and for good reason. But wow, I do remember it now.
Yes, I'm glad I could do that for you. Glad I could help you out with that.
You're really just a giver, aren't you? You give. You give to people.
Hey, never fear. Wildman is here. So here's my question for you, Steve. Here's the question of the week. Let's just call it the question of the week. The KOW. The cow.
I just knew you were going to go there.
QOW, the quow. There we go. The question of the week, the quow. Steve, you're a smart guy, right? You're intelligent.
I don't know after this show, but okay.
There's something I want you to help me out with, and we don't have much time, but it's going to have to be a condensed answer. Could you please define for me the term persecution?
Persecution? Absolutely. It comes from two Latin words. It comes from the verb that means to follow, and the PER prefix means all the way through to the end. So it's someone who is, the idea is someone has been pursuing you, chasing you, following you, but all the way through to the end. So in other words, they're going to get you. That's what really lies behind persecution.
So the idea of somebody pursuing you.
Yes.
Okay,
it is the same root, pursues from the same root. Yep.
Okay. So the reason I'm asking that is because when we are looking at our world today, and we made a vow pretty much, or a commitment, I guess you could say, that, we're not a political show. We don't try to be political. We're not going to, we respect as much as we can everybody's political persuasion. We understand where everybody comes from with that. However, I'm concerned about what people are calling persecution today, and I'm